What's up, my fellow ladies? It's Classically Savvy, your straight aunt from the 50s. And today, I'm turning 19 years old, which means it's high time I find myself a husband. Oh, look, there's a man over there.
Hey, I'm Dave.
Well, hello there, Dave. You're looking awfully large today. What's a large man like you to do with a dainty little flower like me?
Thanks. I am pretty big, huh?
Oh, Dave, you sly panther, you.
What?
You rough elephant. You brontosaurus.
What?
These are all terms that I learned I can use to flirt with men from the book The Secret Power of Femininity. It was published back in 1969.
69, nice.
Oh, you big buffalo. I'd like nothing more than to go to the county fair this weekend, but I just have no one to go with because I'm a loser without friends and my family hates me.
Oh, well, you can go with me?
Oh, thank you, Dave, you tiger, you. I'm sure glad you asked because as a woman, I learned that I'm not supposed to state my desires directly or else I won't be perceived as feminine anymore.
So, you wanna bang?
Not before marriage, you mean old bear.
Hit you some nuts.
There was lots of memes.
Makes me wonder if I should pick up lesbianism.
Chicago. You guys asked for it.
What's up, my fellow small business supporters? I'm Savy. Welcome back to Savy Writes Books, the channel where we talk about books and business, and we have got a fun book review for y'all today. I'm gonna fix my hair real quick. This is a mess. Now, this has been a long-awaited book review, and as a result, it's likely going to be a very long video, so before we get into it, please don't forget to subscribe. I put out new videos every Friday at 11 a.m. Central, and sometimes other times throughout the week as well, and every morning at 8 a.m. Central Time, I stream on my second channel, Your Morning Guru, where we talk about a lot of the same topics, but on a live show and every morning. Now, after reading today's book, I've determined that I'm doing femininity entirely wrong. According to this book, I'm not supposed to get bigger or stronger or more muscular than any man, or else no one will ever be attracted to me. Luckily, I'm already married, and also luckily, I like women, so it's all good. But while I'm off being toxically masculine, I need to make sure I get enough protein every day, which today's sponsor helped me with. Today's video is sponsored by Magic Spoon, a high-protein, low-carb breakfast cereal that comes in a variety of fun flavors. During the past month on my morning show, Your Morning Guru, we've been talking a lot about building habits that serve our goals and how to make those habits a natural part of our day. And this cereal has honestly become one of my habits. As you all know, while I'm A, recovering from surgery, and B, not allowed to work out, I need to make sure I get enough protein to stay strong and keep healing. Because running my morning show has become a daily habit, I needed to compound that with adding a daily breakfast as a habit. I no longer wait until lunch to eat because I need that energy. And honestly, Magic Spoon cereal has been the perfect breakfast for me for my current goals. One serving of Magic Spoon cereal, which is about 1 cup worth of cereal, has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs, and is only about 140 calories per serving. The cereal is also keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb. One struggle that I've sometimes had while I'm building habits is getting bored with doing the same thing every day. But in this case, I've been able to change up the flavor of cereal I eat each day because Magic Spoon has so many flavor options. As I mentioned before, cinnamon is my favorite, but the fruity flavor is quickly coming in second place. Go ahead and check out the link below to get some Magic Spoon cereal. You can build your very own variety box and use my code SAVVY for $5 off. You can choose from the best-selling cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, cookies and cream, and maple waffle flavors, plus other awesome flavors including blueberry and cinnamon. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee, so if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund you your money, no questions asked. So click the link below and use my code SAVVY for $5 off, or go to magicspoon.com/savvy to save $5 on your order today. Also, for my Canadian and British viewers, Magic Spoon is now shipping to Canada and the UK as well, so go ahead and check out that link in my description below. Thank you again to Magic Spoon for sponsoring me. In September of 2021, Amazon Prime released a documentary called LuLaRich, which was about the rise and fall of the LuLaRoe multi-level marketing company. I've already done a full in-depth review of that documentary, so I will link that up in the cards. But one of the most memorable pieces of that documentary for me was about a book that was mentioned within it. Deanne Stidham, who started LuLaRoe, was the daughter of Maureen Startup, who was somewhat of an anti-feminist business guru herself. In LuLaRich, they mentioned that back in the 1960s, Maureen wrote a book about how to win men over by acting as weak and helpless as possible. For such a long time, I've been wanting to read and review this book, but it has been out of print for decades. And almost no libraries have it either. This book has been nearly impossible to find. So quickly, I want to give a shout out to one of my viewers named Lizzie, who found this book in a library archive and sent it to me. You are the absolute best. So without further ado, let's review today's book, which is called That Book Mentioned in the LuLaRich Documentary. No, sorry, it's actually called The Femcel's Guide to Pickup Artistry. No, wait, it's actually called The Book of Mormons Losing Money. No, wait, what I actually like to call it is This Book Made Me Even Gayer. But that's not what it's really called. What it's called is Okay Groomer, a young woman's guide to why it's okay if men fetishize your childlike qualities and hit on you when you're underage. No, that's not true. It's actually called Don't Worry Ladies,
You Can Fix Him.
Sorry. In reality, the book is actually called The Secret Power of Femininity. Let's go. There is more than a lot to unpack in this book, so let's just go through the book in order and see what Pyramid Scheme Queen Maureen, the MLM matriarch, has to say. I went through this book with this notebook that I got from Etsy that says Savy Writes Books. It has my name custom printed on it, so we're just gonna go through all my notes on this book and have a wonderful time. So here we are, starting off with the book's dedication page, dedicated to our 11 children. Maureen had 11 children. 2 of them were the twins, Deanne and Diane. Deanne started LuLaRoe. Diane started Honey and Lace after being cut out of LuLaRoe by her own sister. And then Honey and Lace rebranded to Epiphany, which then rebranded to Savy, which is my name, and I was very offended by that. So Savannah Marie, whose name is close to Savy, she and I went into the Savy MLM call. I'll link it up in the cards. Anyway, I don't think that Diane is involved with Savy anymore, but basically this family is a pyramid scheme empire, because then one of their grandchildren, who is Deanne's daughter, also went on to start Smile. I don't know how many MLMs this company is responsible for, but thank you, Mommy Maureen, for making all of this happen. Of course, because there's no other way to do it. The children are separated by gender. Our 3 ideal gentlemen sons and their charming wives, each of whom has 8 enchantingly feminine sisters and their husbands. In the foreword, the book then goes on to talk about Maureen and Elbert's startup. There's Deanne and Diane, the twins, right there, getting ready, little children soaking in all of Mommy Maureen's knowledge so that they can then go on to start a bunch of pyramid schemes. So let's read a little bit of the foreword. Maureen's startup has also made an enduring sort of history of her own. No other woman comes better qualified by knowledge and experience than she to be an author and lecturer of this valued work. She is one of the women in this United States who doesn't need a frenzied national movement to be liberated. She believes each woman can partake of woman's rights in her own way and receive the payoff of freedom of feminine thought and action, and through the love and protection of her own husband can go forward and have what she wants in life. Go where she wants to go and do what she wants to do. So this is one of those feminist strawman arguments where it's like, the feminist movement just wants to tell women to be independent and not marry men and go off and do whatever, yet she's over here like, I believe that women should be able to be feminine however they want. Congratulations, so does literally every feminist, thank you. And then I like this line right here. She is plentifully endowed. I mean, me too until 3 weeks ago. With human empathy and intellect. We're about to see if that's true. Now, this foreword to the book was written by John R. Brown, plastic surgeon. He is going to be referenced multiple other times throughout the book because I believe he was either the brother or cousin. He was a relative of Maureen's startup, and he's part of the startup family. There's going to be a lot to unpack with him, so stay tuned because this rabbit hole just goes deeper and deeper. However, now that that foreword is over, Maureen is starting to actually write the book herself, and she just grabbed my attention with this line from the very beginning. Woman, pride and jewel of our civilization, no longer exists. She has become a human being It's heartbreaking. Ladies, F in the chat if you hate being a human being. What's your persona? Listed in the comments below. So if we go to page Roman numeral 26, the book from the beginning then goes on to define its target audience. It says, this book is written to help overzealous, modern, rebelling against man-natured girl, as well as the more modest, shy girl who does not know how to use her own innate feminine powers to her advantage. So, this book is a target audience that I am part of because the target audience seems to be all women, as opposed to when I reviewed Girl Define's book a couple months ago. I reviewed that book with Emma Thorne, and we were both talking about how we weren't really the target audience of that book. This book wasn't really written for us. It was written for Christian women who wanted to be more Christian. It wasn't about trying to convert us, so we had to admit from the beginning, yeah, this book wasn't really for us, so if we have issues with it, that's to be expected. Meanwhile, this book is telling me from the very beginning, this is for you, Savy. You need to learn how to be a better woman from this book. On the following page, it says, a girl has the feminine power to bring out the best in him and in herself also. So this was the first place where I started to get, I can fix him type of vibes. Don't worry, ladies, you can fix him, which is very toxic for a lot of reasons, and we're going to go into why that is. But that was the first hint, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm taking that a little too strong. Maybe she's just saying a couple should bring out the best in each other, right? We'll get into it. Now we're into chapter 1 of the book, and on page 3, it brings up the 5 stages of winning a man. Those stages are enticement, enchantment, endearment, encouragement, and engagement. Those are the 5 E's you need to remember to win a man. Win a man. Well, that sounds a little like pickup artistry for women, but okay. So let's take a look at stage 4 of this, which is encouragement, which set off a few red flags for me. Maureen is talking about the objections or obstacles that a man you are courting may have in terms of getting that engagement going and getting the marriage process ready. Now, the first red flag with some of the language that's used here, which will be used throughout the book, is that it very much parallels sales language. And this is something that we talked about when we talked about Grant Cardone talking about how he and his wife got together and how he stalked her for a while and how he was like, I know sales. I know that you have to follow up after the first point of contact and deal with the objections if they say no. You gotta remember that selling a product and having a relationship with a human being are two very, very different things, as they should be. But in this book, much like in Grant Cardone's interviews, it talks about dealing with objections and overcoming those objections and making the sale, which honestly makes a lot of sense considering Maureen's family spawned so many pyramid schemes where the whole thing is sell to your friends and family, overcome their objections, turn your real life relationships into sales. So I can kind of see where that thread is going throughout all of this. But this is where she talks about encouragement and overcoming the objections. She says, he may question very reasonably whether his salary, which has been sufficient for himself alone, can be made to suffice for 2. Because we know the man must be the breadwinner in this particular instance. There's no possible way that the woman could be making enough money for the family or that each person could be making an equal amount of money. Are you kidding? That would be absurd. Paying women equally. Good Lord. Who would ever do such a thing? It continues with the objections, which include, he may not be sure that his salary, such as it is, will continue. His position may be so new that he feels insecure. The boss may at times act cantankerous. And of course, you would never want to marry a man that's part of a union or that supports workers' rights against the boss. That would be ridiculous. So in this book, it is basically taken for a given that the only reason to date someone is to marry them, and the reason to marry them is to have children with them. Because she's going to go into some of the ideal types of men you want to seek out, and it's clear that this isn't find someone who shares similar interests with you, and you guys have a great time together and build a friendship and genuinely want to spend all your time with each other in addition to having physical attraction, and that will be a wonderful, long-lasting marriage. No, instead it's you need to act this way as a woman, and he needs to act this way as a man, and then you can make beautiful, superior children with your fertile bodies to perpetuate the human race. On page 13, we get into the explicit sales comparison language. She says, merchandising and business tactics are fairly modern developments taking place in the 20th century. Modern salesmanship is a young profession. A young profession. Is that a typo? Rendering service which brings the manufacturer and consumer together until men are so smooth in salesmanship that the buyer becomes wary of their smooth double talk. We must watch the con man. We hear the soft sell and the hard sell, the jargon of the salesmen who are so convincing that it is an established fact that today we cannot withstand their appeal. To win a customer, a man, certain principles must be followed in a definite order. No customer or man is ever won until each of these principles has been applied in that order. This is literal pickup artistry, but like for women. This is literal pickup artistry. They're like, watch the con man. Watch the person who knows how to make a sale, using whatever tactics necessary to get that customer. Could you imagine if this book was written for men? I mean, there are books like this written for men. There's Pickup Artist, Red Pill, all those types of books out there, and we rightfully are like, what the fuck is this bullshit? Here's one for women. We're all about equality. Ladies need a pickup artistry book too. Treat the men in your life like a product to be sold. What? Here's the comparisons between the salesman and the young woman. You want to gain attention, which is the first date. Interest, the second date. Desire, going steady. The decision, which is the encouragement to propose, and then the action, which is the engagement, and then the wedding. Later down on page 13, it says, nature, which has always intended that men and women should fall in love and marry, sometimes impels girls to follow unconsciously the same methods that the orator and the sales manager would follow consciously. I'm sorry, did you say that nature is the creation of marriage? Marriage is a legal concept. Can you name another species for me that has a setup with a constructed legal system where you sign marriage certificates? What other species other than humans marry? How did marriage come from nature? I mean, sure, lifelong partnership is natural for many species, and for a lot of humans it's natural, although some humans are not monogamous by nature. So it really depends, but this book just being like, nature. We evolved to get the government involved in our relationships. We evolved for it. We evolved to combine assets with our specific country's type of currency. Of course we did. We evolved for that. Although I don't know if Maureen believes in it, I'm thinking of it. On page 21, Mommy Maureen is talking about what a man wants out of a relationship and how it is our job as women to give men what they want out of the relationship. She says, every man craves to act the part of the superior, manly male. And I was like, does it matter what the woman wants? Because I don't like men acting superior to me. It's actually a massive turnoff. Just dries me up like the desert. Just sucks it all out like a ShamWow at that point. It's disgusting. She says the third and last of the more important characteristics of men is the craving to act the part of the Superman, the ideal man who is this woman's presider, protector, and provider. At no time can he act this part as well as when he is leading, presiding, protecting, or providing for some woman who for the time being seems utterly dependent upon his manly care. Nothing is more flattering to his vanity. Nothing gives him more enjoyable sense of power and manliness, and nothing will more quickly induce him to cast aside his wall of reserve than this. We now emphasize the importance of impressing the man that you need him to kill your snakes for you. So my question here is, who's gonna tell the Mormons about femdom? On page 22, she says, your hero is your knight in shining armor. Polish his armor constantly. Make it shine so you can see yourself in its reflection, so you can derive? The text got a little weird there. Beneath its great protective power, don't let the armor grow dim and gray, dull and rusty. The male armor can be likened to the American flag. When it waves high in the gentle breeze, it serves as well, offering its protection, a symbol of the good living in America today. The male ego is as precious as that flag. Some women let the flag droop sadly, even let it slide listlessly down to the flagpole, and some even carelessly let it drag in the dirt. How tragic! Girls, raise that flag. Let it wave proudly at the top of the flagpole, and you will receive the glory of protection and devotion from your hero. So did Maureen just tell us that if men have an ego problem, it's our responsibility as women to maintain his ego? That yes, men have too much ego, but that's what they want, so just like keep making his ego bigger and bigger and bigger, and if he's bad to you, that's your fault for not stroking his ego enough. Stroking his ego and his... On page 23, Maureen tells us that it's important for us to accentuate the differences between a woman and a man. So here's my question for you guys. If Maureen Startup were alive today and were out there influencing people with her books, would she be A, a pickup artist, or B, a TERF? Let me know what you think in the comments below. It's entirely possible that she might be both. I think I could actually see Maureen as a TERF today, like out here like, yes, I am a feminist. I'm a feminist because I believe that women are different from men and only vagina people belong in the women's bathroom. I could see her like that, definitely, 100%. Either that or she'll be like, no, we must have penises in the women's bathroom because they must protect the women. Good Lord, I need to shut up. So she's talking about the differences between men and women here, where she says that femininity means modest, graceful, affectionate, demure, confiding womanliness, maidenly, ladylike, softer, and more delicate qualities. Hold up, let's find out if that's how femininity is still defined today. So this this says that it's Webster's dictionary that describes femininity this way. Let's take a look now. Definition of femininity: the quality or nature of the female sex, the quality, state, or degree of being feminine or womanly. All right, let's look at feminine. What does that mean? Feminine, a characteristic or of appropriate or unique to women, of relating to or constituting the gender that ordinarily includes the most words or grammatical forms referring to females. Feminine doesn't mean any of those things anymore if the dictionary is our authority. On page 35, she reviews the first chapter, talking about 5 ways to erode a man's wall of reserve, 6 methods of helping the man to respond heroically. Those things include: look for and find the proof of his manliness in what he says and does. Contrast his manliness with your frail femininity. Make him feel infinitely braver, stronger, and abler than you are in his masculine role. You are superior in woman's role. Show an infinite trust and faith in his ability to take care of you. Act the part of beauty in distress. Let him enjoy driving away your fears, helping your helplessness, and exhibiting the all-around masculine superiority. Then on page 36, she goes back into the salesman parallel language where she says, it is only thus that you can learn what men are, how they act, how susceptible they are before a girl who really understands them, and how easy it is to make them do what you want them to do. After all, it is only a matter of knowing human nature, and any salesman can tell you that human nature is very easily influenced to do what you want it to do, once the underlying principles have been mastered. The more I read this, the more it makes sense that this woman spawned the creation of so many pyramid schemes, right? Just this whole human relationships are about what you can get out of each other using sales techniques. Let's continue. On pages 38 to 39, she starts chapter 4, which is called Feminine Search for the Ideal Man. And this is where she talks about what kind of men we should be going after and which ones we should just, they're not part of our dating pool. So she says, how many eligible men are there? Where are they to be found? As the first group of men are just getting started in the world, at least 80 of them are not earning enough to consider marriage. For the sake of this, she talks earlier about how we're going to assume that these numbers come from, imagine you have met 300 men in your life, which that sounds reasonable. So maybe I've met 300 men in my life. How do I know which ones are eligible for marriage? At least 80 of them are not earning enough to consider marriage. So that's one thing you need, is you need your men to make enough money. If he's poor, you can't consider him. If he doesn't make money, he has to be earning enough to consider marriage. An unemployed guy? No, never. Are you in love with the guy who's unemployed? Well, just fuck it. You can't marry him. Too bad. Find someone else. Dude, when I proposed to Tyler, he was unemployed and I had a corporate job I hated. I then quit the corporate job and got a different job, and now we both make enough money to be a double income, no kids couple. Also, dude, could you imagine what Maureen would think if she knew that I had been the one to propose? Like, what do you think? Would her head explode? What do you think if she met some lesbians? What do you think would happen? Oh, we'll get into that. We'll get into what Maureen thinks about the LGBT community, which she doesn't call it that. She calls it like the tragedy of homosexuality or something. We'll get there. So page 39, she continues. So there's 80 men who aren't earning enough, 10 who are earning enough, but have dependent parents or other prohibitive obligations, and 10 are in poor health. Only 50 out of the 100 are eligible for matrimony. Okay, so if the guy is in poor health, which she doesn't define what that means, you can't go after men who aren't in peak performance, peak physical condition. Anyone with health problems, no. We're gonna be super ableist. Maureen says eugenics, eugenicize the earth. That's what she says. Find the men with the most strong and fertile powers and breed with them only. Also, if they have parents or prohibitive obligations, the guy you like has to care for his aging mother who's dying? No, fuck him. No dating him. He's not good enough for you. What the fuck? Then it says, of these, as 20 are already engaged, only 30 are vulnerable to the designs of unattached women. I'm not sure where she even got these numbers from, by the way, like these percentages. I have no idea. In the second group, consisting of 100 unmarried men between the ages of 30 and 40, there will be perhaps about 30 economically incompetent, 10 with dependents and other obligations, and 10 in poor health. So we don't get to count any of the people that have dependents, which could very well mean having children. So you're a man and your wife died and you have to take care of kids on your own. Good luck finding another wife, because if you have dependents, fuck that. No, you're not considered eligible. And once again, poor health. You're in poor health? Nope. No disabled men for you. No men with any chronic illnesses for you. Everyone has to be in peak health so that we can begin the Star Trek eugenics war and Khan can come here and get frozen, which honestly actually makes a lot of sense considering Khan was frozen in 1993, which is like pretty significantly after this book was coming out. Like, I wonder if like Maureen knew Khan. I'm wondering if this book takes place in the Star Trek The Original Series universe. Out of this 100, therefore, you have 50 eligible men, but on account of their advancing age, people in their 30s are of advancing age? Okay. At least 30 of the 50 will already be engaged. This leaves only 20 for matrimonially inclined young women to entice. In the third group, consisting of 50 unmarried men between the ages of 40 and 50, 10 perhaps will be economically unfit, 15 will be in poor health, and 5 handicapped by dependence or other inseparable obligations. As 10 of the remaining 20 will no doubt be engaged, only 10 are left open to the wiles of women. When these figures are summarized, the result is rather discouraging. Yeah, they're discouraging because you cut out all of these men based on superficial factors like their salary or their health or things like that. I guess we don't marry for love in this universe. We marry to breed! However, ladies, don't worry. If the guy you like has one of these qualities that is undesirable for marriage, fear, you can change him! That's right, this book is unironically saying, ladies, you can change him. In the above analysis, we take for granted that you will want a man who can well afford to take care of a wife, a man in good health, a man without burdensome obligations, and a desirable man. Okay. I don't know what you mean by desirable there, but I have a feeling it is prejudiced in some way. Also, I don't want someone taking care of me. I'm a fucking adult. For the average girl, if she will use her brains and apply her knowledge, chances are very good because other girls don't use their heads and rely upon plan and method. Even for a woman past 35, the chances, although not quite so good, are fair enough to make the effort worthwhile, as the competition for the older men is not so keen as the competition for the younger men. 35 is old, I guess. I've only got 6 years until I'm old. But if you have a good chance to win one of the 30 most eligible men out of the 300, you have an even better chance to win one of those whom we have set aside as ineligible. So don't worry, ladies, these men are the backup men. The men who have inherent qualities that you don't like, they're the backup men and you have to change them. Jesus. Let us take another glance at the men whom we have eliminated because of limited earning capacity. There were 80 between 21 and 30 years of age, 30 between 30 and 40 years of age, and 10 between 40 and 50 years of age. In the first group, there are as many who, although not eligible now, will become so within 2 or 3 years as their earning capacity increases. Add these men to the 30 eligible men already discussed, and you'll have about 85 men on your eligibility list. You are among the leading 45 women available for these men. It appears as if there were enough and to spare for each of you. It also appears, since at least half of these 45 women are likely to prevent men in the prospectively eligible group, that you, if you persist, can captivate one of the 30 most eligible and ideal men out of the 300 because you believe through study how you can bring out the best earning power in men. So you have to fix him and make him earn more first before you can go after a man who's not richer than you. That's what I learned today. So then we go into, like, if you're a woman who has a job or a career, you still have to pick out a man who earns more than you because he still has to be the provider. And even when women with careers are brought up as an example, they're always in careers that earn less than the men in all of these cases. There is no ever example given of, but what if you're in a career where you earn more than a man? Like, the possibility isn't considered. It doesn't exist in this universe. So she says, where your ideal manly man may be found. Would you prefer one of the men in the prospectively eligible group? Stenographers, career girls, students, and other women with business experience ought to be able to pick out of this group a rising young man who is bound to make great success and become a romantic lover and husband too. These young men haven't been spoiled and wary, as some eligible men have been, by having ambitious mothers prodding and pursuing them. If a man's mother is pursuing them, you may just want to run for the hills. They will not be overbearing and egotistical. They are more likely to be considerate, romantic, kind, true, and noble. You are more likely to find among them not merely a good but also a presiding, protective, romantic, and companionable partner, and a steadfast worshipper. Okay, if I already have a career, why is it crucial that he is a provider? Because I need to pop out his babies and then stay home with them? Is that just assumed in this universe? Like, it doesn't even have to be laid out because in this universe there is no such thing as women who earn more than men or women who are like, it just doesn't exist in this universe. I need to understand that 1969 was not the fun kind of 69. Okay, sounds good. On page 47, she talks about women who are in college and makes a lot of assumptions, which leads into the correlation, therefore causation fallacy a lot. So she talks about a success story and a sad story. Martha Whiting, an attractive feminine girl, lived in a community of about 1,500 persons during her young life of courting age. So there's a specific courting age. Once you're past courting age, you're dead in the water. There were only about 8 eligible young men within her desirable age range. She fell in love with and married Frank Brown, one of these, and after she happily reared her family of 6 children and many grandchildren, Frank died, and she within due time won the heart of Herbert Barry, a widower. They spend the balance of life together in happiness. Can you do this well? Martha married 2 out of the possible 8 eligible men with whom she started her life. This is a true example that is not necessary to be among thousands of eligible men to gain happiness and goals in marriage. So good for Martha. Well, on the other extreme, a modern girl went to a large private university where there were more than 8,000 eligible top quality men finishing their educations. They had already fulfilled other obligations of marriage readiness, such as the armed forces requirements. Ladies, don't marry a draft dodger. A 2-year mission for their church. I'm sorry, these men are Mormon, I forgot. After attending this university for 4 years, she reported to her parents that she didn't meet a man she would love. Okay, so she didn't fall in love with any of the guys she met in college. Okay, she'll find a man somewhere else, or maybe she was a lesbian. Or what if she was asexual? Or even beyond that, what if she just didn't feel like dating any of those particular people? What if she was interested in men but just found those men uninteresting and wanted to find a man somewhere else because she didn't click with any of them? The book continues. A dean of students at this same university reported to the authors that out of 13,000 women students, only 10% had a dating social life, and that only 50% of the 13,000 men were dating that same 10%. This left 90% of the girls sitting at home in their pin curler armor waiting for the knight in shining armor to break the doors down, which, incidentally, they will never do. They are far more likely to see a girl who is everywhere available to be seen. Now, where were the other 50% of eligible men? They were safely hiding behind their walls of reserve. What will happen to them? They may, in desperation, keep looking, and when they cannot find their cherie goddess, they will settle for a make-do girl, half-girl, who may or may not bring out their better qualities of manhood. I'm sorry, what is a half-girl? Are you saying that if girls aren't a perfect beacon of your definition of femininity, that they're not really entire whole women at that point? That's really awful. Second of all, where are you getting the idea that these girls were sitting home in their pin curlers, sadly, depressedly waiting on the couch for a man to come save them? How do you know that maybe, perhaps, some of those girls, or even most or all of them, may have just not wanted to date those guys? The text and the study say nothing about that. All it says is that they didn't have an active dating life. My initial thought was, oh, because they're probably really focused on their studies, or oh, because they're probably, maybe they're in a program that's really intense because they're really career driven and they'll figure, you know, maybe if they are interested in men, they will find a husband when it's time, when they feel right about it, when they're out of this school program. Maybe if they're training to be a doctor or something, they'll find a male doctor and the two of them will get married because they share the same passion for medicine. But right now the focus is on getting through school. Where did the idea come from that, well, if they weren't dating, it must have been because they really wanted to date, but just weren't putting in the effort to get themselves out there. Maybe they didn't want to. This is just such a fallacious argument that it makes me want to not do fellatio. Sit home in my pin curler armor. This hair's natural, I don't have to curl this. Speaking of my curly hair, beauty standards mentioned later in this book are very specific to women who have straight to wavy hair wanting to style it. Women with naturally curly hair, or God forbid, non-white women, are not going to fit these standards that Maureen has so rigidly set for us. So now let's head to page 50, where we talk about the elements of perfect appearance and perfect qualities for a man, which are all, of course, get ready for it, ableist and classist. The girl men notice is apt to have these signs of good health: clean, shiny hair, fresh, soft skin, clean teeth, glowing eyes, a firm, trim figure, and a bouncy walk. Well, okay, that eliminates a lot of difference. Okay, shiny hair. First of all, you understand that there are many different hair textures that different women have that are just inherent to who they are. I have never had like shiny or smooth hair. My hair has always been quite thick and quite textured for a white woman, and that's not to say like, but women from other backgrounds, they're gonna have a variety of different types of hair, so that's, I want to say racist. Let's continue. A bouncy walk, so we're just eliminating all women who have physical disabilities where any walk at all, let alone a bouncy walk, might not be able to have. A firm, trim figure, what does that even mean? Does that mean that the woman would have like good, like thick abs or something? Like good abs? I don't know what's going on there, but we need to remember that this book came out in 1969. Every 10 years, the ass gets worshipped differently. And here's the thing, that beauty standards change constantly, whether it's considered idealized for a woman to be thin or a woman to be thick or a woman to be whatever changes. And we also have to keep in mind that everyone who's attracted to women also has different preferences and different body types. And at the end of the day, every woman just needs to embrace the body type that she has and have the body that makes her the happiest. As someone currently experiencing body euphoria, I can tell you that firsthand. My friend Kat Benson, who's a dietitian, recommends this book that she's talked about on the Your Morning Guru show before, called Fearing the Black Body. I highly recommend everyone look it up. And my friend Bad Astra, who also has a YouTube channel about about doing educational science related skits and things like that. She did a fantastic video reviewing that book and talking about how that's led to discrimination in the medical community. But basically it's a book all about how beauty standards of being thin directly correlate to beauty standards of people wanting to value white women and not value black women, specifically in Europe during the times of like slave trades and things like that. So I highly recommend reading it. I've started it, I haven't finished it yet, but it's really interesting to learn all about the history of where a trim figure came from as a beauty standard. So let's continue. She is apt to have good mental health that comes from proper attitudes and a worthwhile character. If she is free from guilt over the way she has treated other people, and she has an appreciation for the blessings of life, these things will show up in her happy, relaxed facial expressions. We needed some manifestation bullshit. We needed some of that. We couldn't have a book written by the mother of the twins who created multiple multi-level marketing empires without it being all about manifestation to cure your own mental health. So in Maureen's opinion, good mental health comes from keeping a positive attitude and not having any negative thoughts. Nowadays, we call that toxic positivity, and a lot of multi-level marketing companies and cults use that to keep people thinking positively even when the company or the cult is manipulating them and siphoning money from them. It's fascinating how these things work out, isn't it? Then on the same page, she goes into, okay, I hear you guys, you're saying, what if I'm not in good health through no fault of my own, as if good health is ever anyone's fault either way. She goes into, okay, what do we do in that situation? So she says, in the section, the woman who is not healthy, few women are unable to improve their health, but a person who has some permanent affliction need not give up hope of finding someone to love. If she will keep up her good spirits and be a person with good mental health, men will still be attracted to her. So basically here it's like, if you are disabled, you have to be extra nice to overcome that. It's not just part of who you are. You can't just have that as part of who you are and be loved anyway because like all people have inherent worth. No, instead you have to be extra nice to make up for that. All right, Mommy Maureen. In the next part, she likes to talk about how abstinence equals purity, and you need to be pure because otherwise you are damaged. So she says, self-respect and pride would be important. A man cannot love a woman completely if she does not love herself. He will not respect her if she doesn't respect herself. Chastity is part of this self-respect. The woman who does not respect and protect her body has no self-respect and will receive none from others. Mommy Maureen literally came in here and said, hoes ain't shit. That's what she said. Now I'm wondering what she means by chastity. Does she mean like you can't break your hymen? Is this like one of those old time things? Like if you've used a tampon and broke your chastity with that, then you are no longer pure? Or is it like you can never have a penis inside of you? Because it's like do bi girls get off the hook? That's my question. She continues, mental health also includes the quality of unselfishness. The girl should be compassionate and helpful toward others. One definition of mental health is the state of being happy more than half the time. Happiness is of most importance in becoming the kind of girl a man thinks is beautiful. So you need to be happy. So here's something interesting to talk about. Y'all ever heard that song by the Rolling Stones called Mother's Little Helper? It was about this phenomenon. Mother's Little Helper, the crisis of psychoanalysis and the Milltown Resolution. This source is from the journal Gender and History from August of 2003. In the 1960s and 70s, psychopharmacological medications seemed to burst onto the American scene. Popularized and problematized, I don't know how to say that. In the notion that these drugs were mother's little helpers, the pills became known as treatments of choice for the pressures of motherhood, singlehood, and other historically specific forms of essentialized womanhood. So then we've got some lyrics from the Rolling Stones song. Jacqueline Suzanne suggested that psychopharmaceuticals were a woman's best friend when it came to dealing with the pressures of working in a man's world, while Barbara Gordon informed millions of Americans about the untoward effects of a woman's treatment with, addiction to, and withdrawal from Valium. And most important, nearly all of the research supporting the notion that psychopharmacological medications were overprescribed to mothers was conducted during the benzo craze between 1965 and 1979. So basically, in the exact time period that Maureen is writing from here, specifically among women, specifically among housewives, stay-at-home moms, and even other women trying to work in male-dominated fields, during this time there was an absolute craze of painkiller, Valium, and benzo addictions among specifically women. And she's over here being like, you need to be happy at least 50% of the time. You need to have good mental health, which at this time, good mental health didn't mean actual mental health. It didn't mean going to see a licensed therapist and working through all of your problems to find the root causes and find good behaviors and habits that would help you actually overcome those things. Nor was it about getting pills that would directly correlate to a mental illness. On a lot of these cases, these pills were overprescribed, not to people who had necessarily a diagnosed mental illness, but rather to just women who were having breakdowns because of being forced to do all of this additional emotional labor, as well as physical labor and financial labor on top of everything else. So when she's over here telling women, force yourself to be happy, this is what it resulted in. It resulted in absolute drug abuse crazes among women in this exact time period. So Maureen, you need to go fuck yourself. Actually, she's dead. She continues along the toxic positivity lines. More important than outward beauty is a winsomeness of manner and action, and a smiling face is probably the most important thing here. If a girl is happy, she can be lovely. If she is constantly unhappy, her features take on a hard expression. A girl is attractive when she learns to express her feelings. She can learn to control bitter anger, but she should let her feelings of joy, exuberance, appreciation, affection, and delight show. So basically, if you're a woman, you should be sharing your feelings with everyone, unless the feeling is anger. If it's anger, you have to keep that buried deep down inside until you end up addicted to benzos. However, if you are happy, you need to portray that openly because men will find it hot. Kill me. On page 54, she starts doing a lot of fictional comparisons. A lot of the time in this book, we're going to see more examples later. When she wants to give us examples of good women to emulate, a lot of them are fictional. It's very rare that she sometimes gives us real women to emulate, but a lot of the women are fictional, like idealized women from books and plays and classic literature and things like that, which is very good for realistic expectations, Maureen. So she says, possibly you wonder why it is important to have a girlish faith in men, a trust that they will take care of you, and a need for their protection. First of all, though you may deny it, you do need protection. Girls are being slugged and assaulted every day. Maureen. Mommy. Pyramid Scheme Queen Maureen. Who do you think is assaulting them? This reminds me of when I reviewed Dave Rubin's book, and he was like, you can hate straight white men all you want, but they're the ones who ended slavery. And who were the ones who were perpetuating it, Dave? In this case, Maureen is like, you need protection from men because you might get assaulted by men. Now guys, before someone goes hashtag not all men on me in the comments, I am not whatsoever saying that all men are dangerous. In fact, I don't think they are. But especially back in the 1960s and 70s, cases of domestic violence and abuse went wildly unreported. And to look at someone saying, well, because a man might hurt you, that means you need a man's protection. What if it's the man that you're supposed to trust for protection that's the one hurting you, Mommy Maureen? She never once addresses domestic violence in this book. And also, if men are being such a problem assaulting women, why isn't Maureen talking about instead like, oh, let's look at some ways to get our justice systems better so that can be further prosecuted, while also talking about some ways to better educate everybody about laws regarding consent, while also looking at the systemic causes of violence among young men at the same time, and maybe also teaching women some self-defense. Why can't we look at multiple? Instead, it's like, so therefore you should just rely on men and hope the one you pick doesn't turn out to be violent. Thank you, Mommy. Page 58, get ready to vomit. Get ready to vomit on page 58. So here she's talking about John Brown, her grandfather. Remember, Dr. Brown is the surgeon, who I believe is her brother, and her grandfather is John Brown. Now, to be fair, John Brown was born in the 1800s. In 1969, when this was published, Maureen was probably already into her 50s or so at this point. So John Brown, her grandfather, was born a long time ago. But we can look at people who were born a long time ago and say, what you did was wrong. We still shouldn't be glorifying people from a long time ago who did bad things. We can look at things and say, yeah, you did that a long time ago. I'm not gonna condone it though. So let's talk about what John Brown did that Maureen thinks is okay to celebrate and perpetuate in the 20th century of modern women. John Brown, the author's grandfather, was one who chose 2 different wives in a Mormon plural marriage. I think that if everyone in a relationship is consenting to there being multiple people in the relationship, more than 2, I have no problem whatsoever with that. I have no problem even with them all getting married. I'm gonna go into why Grandpa John Brown's marriage was problematic, but that is not me saying that I think that relationships or even potentially marriages with multiple people is problematic if everybody consents, okay? These women filled his life, each had a strong, worthy character, and both loved and won John Brown. They did not win him, he groomed them. In about 1880, there was no law concerning plural marriage, as there is now, limiting a man to one wife. Every man looks for the girl of his dreams, who has both Cherie and goddess qualities, meaning wanting to be cherished and protected and wanting to be worshipped. Once in a while, he is lucky, but most of the time he faces disappointment in searching for the complete ideal girl, two girls rolled into one. John Brown's case was exceptional. It was then that grandfather, a Mormon Western pioneer schoolteacher, married his 17-year-old sweetheart pupil, Cynthia. She was a wife of fine merit and an efficient, righteous homemaker and a mother, a saintly woman of character. She adored and depended upon him. After about 6 years and 4 children, John was called by his church to take a plural wife. He was required to get Cynthia's sanction before he could marry the girl he chose. Her younger sister! This calls for when I was reading Dave Hollis's book and I posted pictures of it on Instagram. One of my followers gave me one of the best comments ever, which said, "What a terrible day to be literate. What a terrible day to know how to read the English language and have to see that." Grandpa was a teacher. Grandpa had a student. And while that student was still underage, Grandpa married her. Now, guys, before someone comes in the comments with like, my historical accuracy though, I get it. I know that women were being married at 17 and even younger during the 19th century. I am aware of that. Doesn't mean we should be celebrating it today though. But Grandpa was a groomer. That's what I'm going to call the song that I write about this book. It's going to be called Grandpa Was a Groomer. His student, who he had direct power over when she was 17, and married her, and then married her younger sister. Grandpa was a groomer. Grandpa was a groomer, Mommy Maureen. Then Maureen talks about how both of these women that he married, which I guess were, one of them was her grandma and one of them was her aunt or something. They each represented different pieces of womanhood that completed John's desire for womanhood. Thurza, who's the younger sister of the already too young girl that Grandpa married, it says she had the girlishness, the adorably human and childlike manner that made his love grow with the desire to protect and shelter. I'm sorry, did you just say that Grandpa really loved his child bride because of her childishness? Maureen, I don't know if you should be calling this a wonderful illustration of anything, let alone a consensual relationship. On page 68, Maureen says, "Warning, a police report was issued warning all women not to catch the look of a man of questionable character. Do not take such chances. An evil stranger could take that look as a leading come-on and cause tragedy." How are we supposed to determine from looks alone if a man has questionable character? Again, that sounds prejudiced. Second of all, let's talk about the victim blaming real quick. He could take that look as a leading come-on and cause a tragedy. I'm sorry, are you talking about SA here? Because if you are, Maureen, how does a woman looking at that man cause that? You're saying that if she looked at a man of questionable character that caused it? That a woman should be able to stop all SA by not looking at men of questionable character or not being able to determine that men are questionable based on their outside appearance alone? Girl, what? I wrote in my notes here, just read all of page 69 aloud. 1969, Maureen has 69 nieces and nephews, and we're reading all of page 69. Here we go. "If a man happens to be rough and clasping your hand, look at him with reproachful glance, and wring your fingers to remind him what a tender thing a woman's hand is. If you find him staring at you, don't stare back boldly, but act confused and modest. Flutter your eyelashes to remind him what a sensitive creature a woman is, as contrasted with his own bold and daring, if rude, character. If you have met an acquaintance upon the street, you may act more or less timorous and undecided, so that he will feel the necessity of offering you his manly guidance. If you are at a picnic, you may act hesitant about sitting on the ground, or find another need for a man nearby to offer assistance, so that some man or other makes you comfortable. The difference in such a situation between an attractively feminine girl and a plain, uninteresting girl is that the plain girl would find her own newspaper to sit on, while the feminine one would wait for manly assistance, just as she allows a man to open doors for her and help her in traffic. Her eyes are appealing to some man or other to help or rescue her out of difficulties. She may directly ask for help, or she is so apparently helpless in every situation that not only men are implied to offer aid, sometimes her businesslike but less femininely beautiful sisters feel impelled to offer her help. The latter feel the same indulgent superiority toward her that a man feels, but it isn't the same. Women do not enjoy the feeling of superiority as the man does. A man never scorns the delicacy and helplessness of a woman because he enjoys too much the contrast it brings out between her feminine frailty and his manly strength. Combine this knowledge with the obvious show of good health. A man also likes a girl who is sports-minded, can camp out, join in the fun, sometimes holding her own, but not competing with him in his manly prowess. So if I find my own newspaper to sit on at the picnic, men are gonna be like, if I still like her, does that make me gay now? Like, that's what's gonna happen, okay? Also, women do not enjoy that feeling of superiority as the man does. I think that's just wrong. I explicitly do. Like, I've talked about how, like, I'm working on getting my deadlift up, as you guys know, and my bench press once I'm done with surgery. Like, my surgery's done, but once I'm done recovering, I'm gonna get back into personal training. And I've been telling Tyler, like, dude, you better watch out, because one of these days I'm gonna be able to lift you. I'm gonna be able to lift you and pick you up just like you pick up the dog. I'm gonna be able to do it. And that's a good feeling. That's a good fucking feeling. What are you saying? I don't enjoy that feeling. I enjoy it a little too much. But then again, I'm also very toxically masculine. I tweeted the other day how my most toxically masculine trait is how badly I want to bench press attractive women. And I'm completely planning to do that at my 30th birthday party, to just bench press as many women there as consent to it, as want to be bench pressed by me. There will be a video. You're right, I don't feel the need to be superior to men just to bench press other women. If you want me to bench press you, let me know in my comments below. On page 72, she starts teaching women how to dress. She says, dress being the most likely thing to attract attention, girls should study how to select their clothing to appear especially feminine. Naturally, they should be dainty, fragile, soft, delicate, graceful, and cuddlesome as they can be, so as to give the best impression that those are the qualities of the wearer herself. Also important are feminine hairstyles, dainty danceable shoes, etc. Never in the manner or appearance of the woman must there be any touch of severity, show of strength, or efficiency. Don't wear anything like a man would wear. We'll get into the specifics of that soon. Then, when we're at the dance, move on about the dance or party room. Make it easy for a man to approach you. Don't stand or sit among a crowd of girls, even if they're attractive. Mommy Maureen literally said no homo, and she didn't mean it as a disclaimer, she meant it as a command. No, Savy! Stop it! Get away from the attractive girls! Go entice a man! Someone's like, hello, 911. There's this manly lesbian type character bench pressing women out on the dance floor. Can you please have her go? That's what's happening right now! On pages 83 and 84, she starts talking about what we're gonna do on the date. So she says, when a man seems to become enchanted by a certain girl, he is not actually interested in the girl, so much as he is interested in the pleasure, the comfort, and the feeling of his strength and manliness that society gives to himself. So right here is the page about how all men are super selfish and awful, but we still need to let them be selfish and awful because then they'll marry us. And I'm like, why would I want to marry a selfish and awful guy? And the answer is because my biological clock's running out and I need to reproduce quickly to serve the Mormon church. He is interested in 1. Sports only because he can display a certain skill or knowledge of them. 2. Politics or religion only because he has a few pet ideas on the subjects. And 3. Business only because he feels that he can accomplish great things in that field. He is never interested in outside matters except as they relate to him personally. His interest is at first self-centered. Later, this enchantment should grow to include your welfare as your man-woman relationship develops. So she's over here like, men are selfish, get used to it. Do not expect a man to make himself less selfish before you go on a date with him. No, men are selfish, deal with it. That's what Mommy Maureen says. You cannot expect to enchant a man unless you first entangle his interest in himself. The thing to do is to think and talk about all the things that concern him to make him feel that he is admired for his masculine attributes and to make him feel that he is worthy of that admiration. If incidentally, he can be led to believe that the appreciation and admiration are from someone whose good opinion is worth having, so much the better. He is then doubly flattered and doubly enchanted. So I have to go on this date and talk to the man about his interests, which you have admitted he's interested in these things particularly because he thinks that they make him think more about himself and his own ego. So I have to be there to stroke his ego, but not his P word. And I'm not supposed to talk about things I'm interested in. I'm supposed to talk about specifically what he's interested in. So my question is, why am I not just finding someone who has similar interests as me to go on a date with? Is that like so outside the realm of what's possible? possible here. There's no one with, you could never find someone with the same interests as you to go on a date with. Find whatever his interest is and just feign interest in that. Great, sounds like a healthy relationship. She even says it right here. It will seem a little at first to become interested in dry as dust subjects of which you know little. Bold of you to assume I know little about business, Mommy Maureen, and bold of you to assume that women in general know little about business when your own daughter scammed like half the women in the country. Your own daughter started the boss babe craze! Listen not so much as to what is being said as to the man who is saying it. Notice how absorbed he is in the subject, how he has mastered the details, how he glories in his skill and knowledge. Again, why can't I just date a guy who I share interests with? Or girl. This book's making me like men less. I was like firmly bisexual when I started reading this book. And now I'm like becoming more of a full-time lesbian every page that goes by. That's not true. That's not how the LGBTQ community works. That was a joke. Don't cancel me, Mommy Maureen. On page 88, Maureen tells us that we should be manipulative to men by making them jealous with other men. It would be appropriate to bring up another man you know who does outstanding manly things, not to discourage your friend, but to let him know that he isn't the only man who seeks your attention. If you say, did you see the way Jim Thorpe caught that football on the 10-yard line last Saturday? It was thrilling. The guy you were talking to will probably say, why, only the week before that I kicked the ball over the goal line and made the touchdown that won the game. He may add a few things to prove to you that he is more worthy of admiration than the other men are, and that he, a man, is also interestingly different from yourself, a woman. When he works at winning your admiration on his own efforts, he will not be suspicious of your setting a cap for him. Be sure you show him you always admire manliness in every man, because you, a woman, are not accomplished in the same things as he or they. He or they, I love it. Maureen said, he, they writes. If a man is significantly more accomplished than me, it kind of kills my attraction to him. I know that sounds bad, but like, I'm like such a dominant bitch. I like men that I can be like, oh yeah, did you know about all my accomplishments? You want to see all the amazing things I've done? Look at this. Do you admire me? She talks about being worshipped. I don't like to be worshipped in the same way. I think that I like to be worshipped as like, oh my God, Savy is just this brilliant business owner. Talk business to me, mommy. That's what I want to hear. Not like, I'm not as accomplished as you are in these things. Tell me how you throw a football better than me. I'm like, hey, who wants to be bench pressed? That's why I'll never find a man to love me. I don't know, I've been married for 5 years, whatever. On page 97, she gives an example of this character, Cherie, she brought up, who is a stenographer in this case. Cherie, age 20, was a stenographer employed at a large office. As in many offices, the other girls were on a certain footing of over-familiarity with the men, comrades and pals of the men rather than the feminine girls to be respected, worshipped, and placed upon a pedestal. And though this made them good company, it failed to contrast their femininity with the manliness of the man, and failed consequently to arouse any higher feeling than a buddy friendship between them. I like how even in this fictional example where the woman worked, all the women are in lower paid jobs than all the men, and Cherie, because she's happy in her lower paid position and wants to keep earning less than the men and giving them whatever they want, she's the only one that doesn't get friend zoned. Cherie is literally a fucking pick-me girl. I kind of hate her. Cherie's like, oh, I'm not like other girls. I'm totally fine with having a lower paying position and never getting promoted. On page 100, any potential benefit of the doubt that I had that maybe Maureen wasn't talking about toxic or abusive relationships, all of it's gone. She is totally fine with women having to I can fix him to a man. Page 100, Marlene was engaged to Joe, who kept putting their wedding date off. Although they declared their love for one another and seemed to enjoy their man-woman relationship in many ways, Marlene reported in class that they quarreled bitterly once they got started. Yeah, so the in class is because Mommy Maureen hosts coaching. She hosts classes. She's a literal relationship business guru. Like she's like the mommy of red pillars. She did not seem to know how the quarrels started, progressed, nor finished, but declared they always left her exhausted, bitter, and very near to breaking off their engagement. She knew they couldn't continue. After finishing the chapter on how to respond to a man with calling him names of big, tough animals to drive away his seriousness and cares, she said that the next big quarrel was ensuing between them. She thought of the lesson. The argument was heated, and she dreaded what would surely follow. What would follow the argument? Are you implying what I think? Because if so, she doesn't just need to break off their engagement. She'd just call the fucking police, dude. So she just said to him with hands on her hips and a heavy sigh, "Humph, you're just a rough, tough, mean old bear." She said he stopped in amazement and asked, "What did you just say?" Expecting the worst, that he might just even hit her. If she thinks it's a reasonable expectation that he's gonna hit her, she needs to not only leave his ass but also call the police. This is not a relationship that Mommy Maureen should be coaching someone how to stay in. Joe softened and smiled, saying, "Honey, that's the nicest thing you ever said to me." He grabbed her in his arms, whirling her around the floor, kissed her soundly, and went about other business. So then this couple stayed together. Literally, I know too many women in my life who have been in domestically violent situations that, Maureen, you should not be coaching women about how to stay in these relationships, let alone put any onus on the women whatsoever to fix the situation. That is an abusive man that Marlene was with. Now, you may have noticed that Maureen talked about how to call men names of tough animals and how that's supposed to soften his temper. Let's read about that on page 99. Patty was registering as a freshman at college. She had finished the Power of Femininity class and looked forward to this new, exciting experience. There were to be new friends, new classes, teachers, a new campus, and best of all, thousands of new young men. Wait, you taught this woman a class before she even left for college? This was a teenage girl who wasn't a freshman in college yet, and you were selling her your guru relationship coaching course? You were indoctrinating children with this, Maureen? While visiting with a new girlfriend next door, she was introduced to Bob, an attractive 19-year-old sophomore who was immediately interested in Patty. They hit it off just fine, and very soon he asked her to accompany him to the new bookstore to look up a few things he needed. She accepted, and quite naturally he became her personal guide, showing her the more interesting places on campus. She admired this and that as they went along with special emphasis on him and his interests. As he teased occasionally, she answered by calling him names like, "You're teasing me, you old dinosaur. Now stop, you big tough bear. How can you be so mean, you tiger, you?" He would only laugh and try something else. Sometimes he would say, shoving his manly chest out, "Yes, irresistible. Yeah, I know it." Later, after a fun-filled afternoon, he took her home and said, "You know, Patty, that's the nicest way anyone ever talked to me." Here is a list of suggested names to practice on a man who is teasing or just paying attention to you. It may be done with laughter, coy playfulness, or mere pretense. A mean old bear, a tough rhinoceros, a walrus, a brontosaurus or dinosaur, a rough elephant, you tiger, you, sly panther, growling lion, a mean gorilla, a buffalo. Exaggerate the animals which are big and tough. On page 141, Maureen talks about how if you want to get engaged to a man and he's not moving to get engaged and he's not he's dragging his feet, he's not proposing, you should make him jealous with another man so that he feels the urgency. So in this chapter, Maureen is discussing the feminine air that will attract more men to you as a woman. And then she titles this section, "Why Young Girls Attract All the Men. They Have That Air." This explains why very young girls have so much greater fascination for men than women 10 or 15 years older. The latter have so much more experience, so much the air of being able to kill their own snakes that men cannot feel like heroes in their presence. Mommy Maureen literally said men like younger women better because younger women are less experienced. Older women have too much experience and too much independence, and men don't like that they can't control them. Okay, groomer! The greater, manlier, more intellectual the man is, the more he is enticed by the noticeable feminine power of gentleness, demureness, and joyous fascination. Cannot every reader imagine what will naturally happen when the red-blooded American man meets up with an obviously strong, competent, hard-headed, defiant, domineering woman who proves her independence? Who's gonna tell the Mormons about femdom? Is it any wonder men prefer turning to another man? One of the tragedies of homosexuality to which every masculine female is contributing when she falls into this feminist movement? Women being too masculine is making men attracted to men? Is what I'm gathering here that there are so many masculine women in this world that men would prefer like a femboy instead because at least he's more feminine than this dominant woman who makes money. At least the femboy's more feminine, so that makes the man turn gay. We're putting feminists in the water and turning all the men gay? Is that what you said? It's like an Alex Jones level conspiracy. Is it working in reverse too? Is it like if men start becoming gay and then become more feminine about it, then that's gonna make the women turn into lesbians and being a lesbian turns the women masculine, which then turns the men gay? Is this like a vicious cycle of gay? Is that what's going on here? One of the tragedies of homosexuality. Not me turning all the men gay so that I can steal all the feminine women from them. That's the best page of this whole fucking book. God damn.
damn.
This heading on page 153 sounds like a fetish. Make yourself somebody's pampered darling. Do I have to call him daddy too? On page 161, she tells me how to emphasize my girlishness, which I don't know what girlishness is because I assumed it was synonymous with femininity, but now I think the emphasis is actually on girl, as in like, make yourself appear younger. Literally call him daddy! You are to make yourself somebody's pampered darling. You are to endeavor to make every man you meet wish to humor and spoil you. You are to study and imitate these exceptionally adorable girls who have the air of being accustomed to being indulged and spoiled. I get to study adorable girls. I didn't know that that was part of it. Maureen, you got these girls' number? When do I get to study the attractive women? Do we get to practice kissing with each other too? On page 162, Maureen talks once again about how we should try to emulate fictional women. She says, if you go to a movie, get out your notebook after seeing the show and write a brief description of the various arts of manner, dress, and action by which the heroine emphasized her femininity, by which she made the man feel big and strong. If you can't remember the various devices by which she accomplished this, sit through a show a second or third time until you've made yourself a master of her allurements. So Maureen keeps bringing up all of these fictional women in movies and things like that that are the perfect feminine woman. And I think Maureen is assuming that because these women are the heroes in movies, their femininity must be done perfectly, instead of realizing the actual cause was the MPCC, which was a specific code in Hollywood around that time that legally censored movies that didn't subscribe to hard black and white definitions of good and bad and force women and men into specific gender roles. Around this time, we noticed that a lot of characters who many people called queer-coded at the time, including women who took on more masculine roles or men who dressed or spoke in a more feminine way, those characters were often villains because this code specifically prohibited characters from being good guys if they were gender non-conforming in any way, shape, or form, because in that case, that was seen as promoting homosexuality or promoting gender deviance, and people thought that would threaten the order of men and women having specific gender roles that they had to stay within. The female lead in a movie was always going to be following specifically traditionally feminine gender roles because that was legally required at the time. Now, while this book was published in 1969, the MPCC officially started to fizzle out of date around 1968 when the motion picture rating system, like the G, PG, PG-13, that whole system, went into play instead. But while this book was written, that whole time period was absolutely influenced by the most popular media being legally restricted as to what it could specifically portray. All right, guys, who's ready for page 171? Who's ready for the big reveal? There's a big reveal coming. Get excited. Page 171. You guys remember at the beginning I told you the foreword to this was by Dr. John Brown, who was a plastic surgeon? Well, he appears multiple times again throughout this book, and here's what he says. So he has a passage in this book called Changing Yourself Self-Image, and it's from his book, which is called You Can Become Feminine and Beautiful. So John Brown, the plastic surgeon, also wrote a book. I can't find this book anywhere, you guys. We're going to talk about this book, but I need to review this book for many reasons, which we're going to get into in just a moment. If anyone has any leads, you know what? Right now I'm working on, I'm going to reach out to some archivists and things like that and see if there's anywhere I could possibly find an archived copy of this. It is not just out of print. John Brown has a Wikipedia page that we're going to look at in a moment. The book isn't listed there. I searched in the Library of Congress website. It wasn't listed there. I Googled his name with the full title of the book in quotes. Nothing. This book wasn't even listed in the bibliography in the back of this very book that cites it that I'm reading. It lists other books in the bibliography, but not this one. And I don't know why, but we're going to uncover a bunch of things right now. Who is John R. Brown, the plastic surgeon? Who is this man who is, I believe, the brother or cousin of Maureen's startup, thereby uncle to Deanne and Diane of LuLaRoe and of a bunch of other MLMs? Who is this man? You guys ready? John Ronald Brown was an American surgeon who was convicted of second-degree murder after the death of a 79-year-old patient in his care. The rabbit hole goes deeper. The man cited multiple times in this book is a murderer. And not only that, but he performed unlicensed plastic surgery in where? Tijuana, Mexico. Now, where does that sound familiar? Deanne started encouraging some of the people towards the top of the company to go get a gastric sleeve surgery done so that they could become supermodel levels of thin. Deanne made it very clear that she wanted everyone to get this surgery done in Tijuana, Mexico, with a specific doctor. One woman in the documentary decided to get a slightly different surgery, which was still a weight loss surgery, done in the US instead. Deanne discouraged her from this, and then when that woman later had complications from her surgery and had to get the weight loss sleeve or whatever taken out and go back to normal, Deanne was basically like, well, I told you so, this wouldn't have happened if you'd followed my advice, showed her no sympathy, basically. That led me to wondering, was Deanne getting a cut of the profits from the surgery? Oh, right. Deanne from LuLaRoe, his niece, I believe, was referring people to shady surgeons in Tijuana, Mexico to get surgery to make themselves thinner for LuLaRoe. And according to my sources, Roberta and Lachey, who were actually in the LuLaRich documentary, Deanne was getting a cut of the profit.
Was Deanne, I don't know if you know or can talk about it, but was Deanne getting, like, referral money from that doctor? Oh, she was?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Basically what happened is if you wanted to get the weight loss surgery, and Lachey can add some extra tea on here, but I'll give the gist.
Yes.
You would reach out to Lene, who is Deanne's sister. And Lene runs the office in Tijuana for a weight loss center called Obesity Not For Me. And so
sounds like a very legit professional medical clinic name.
I'm sure it's a nice place, but like,
Yeah.
You get what you pay
having
for.
Having someone bring so many people down, I would be like, ooh, you know what I mean? So, if you wanted the surgery, you would basically message Lene to get on the list. You would PayPal $5,000. She would get you on the list. You'd fly down on the jet. Lachey she can talk about the jet. She was on the photo of them all on the jet. They're going to TJ to get weight loss surgery, and Lachey is the one taking the photo, so she can tell that story. But they take $1,000 cut. They send $4,000 to the doctor, and then you go down and you get your surgery, and they keep $1,000 for them.
I was like, I knew that they had to be, because there's no reason that they would be like, you have to get it at this particular clinic. You can't get it in your own country. I was like, because Deanne and Mark, they have to be getting a cut. So they were getting a cut the whole time.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they were getting a cut. For sure was getting a cut, because it was only available to you if she thought you could bring something to the table. Because $5,000 is not nothing.
Right.
Not for a surgery. So, I mean, at that price. And I knew people who actually had the surgery, and I was really shocked that they got the surgery. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, they wouldn't say anything. You would just see people in home office, and then you wouldn't see them anymore. And then it'd be a while, and then you see them, and they come back, and it's like, oh, okay. Huh.
I can't prove that these two things are related directly, but let's just keep looking for a second. Brown graduated from University of Utah School of Medicine in 1947 and worked as a general practitioner for almost 2 decades. However, after almost losing a patient during a thyroidectomy, he decided to undertake formal surgical training. I'm glad that after someone almost died during one of his surgeries, he decided to take formal surgical training. Now, did he become licensed in surgery? Let's find out. Despite excelling in the written aspects for the American Board of Plastic Surgery, he failed the oral assessment, blaming his domineering father. So no, he was not a licensed surgeon. Let's continue. By the early 1970s, which would be right after this book came out, Brown was carrying out gender-affirming surgery on transgender patients at a small clinic he set up in San Francisco. He would later claim to have performed 600 such surgeries during the course of his career. Most of his patients were trans women who were too poor to afford the fees of reputable surgeons. Others were former patients of the university-based units at Stanford University and Johns Hopkins Hospital that offered transgender treatment during the 1960s. So there's a systemic issue going on here that we definitely need to talk about. As a lot of people have pointed out to me, there have been many testimonies of trans women who were operated on by Dr. Brown who said, I'm actually grateful for his services. Who said he was the only one who would perform this surgery on me, and while he wasn't a completely reputable surgeon, I prefer that to not being able to access this surgery at all. A problem that was happening then, and in a lot of cases still continues to happen now, is trans patients not having full access to healthcare, especially currently right now in the US, where our healthcare system doesn't have any universal coverage option to make sure that everybody has the healthcare they need to access necessary life-saving services. So in this case, a lot of trans people, especially at this time when gender-affirming surgeries were still seen as kind of a newer thing or something that a lot of people and a lot of doctors even didn't really believe in, it was very, very hard to access it, especially if you didn't have a ton of money to pay for it. So when people needed these services but didn't have the money, in a lot of cases, they were forced to go to a surgeon that was less reputable. Now, am I going to blame John Brown for what happened that we're going to get into? I mean, yeah, because I do think it was still wrong of him to open up a surgery clinic when he wasn't a licensed surgeon. I think if John Brown did have some kind of passion for wanting to help trans people get the surgeries that they needed, then he probably should have actually gone back and once again actually finished surgical training, actually gotten licensed as a surgeon, and not done these shady underground type surgeries, and instead tried to do them in a reputable way. Because what happened in this situation was tragic. But at the same time, as people have pointed out to me when I've talked about this, we can't just blame John Brown for the whole situation without blaming the entire systemic issue of trans people not having access to medical care. And at the time, a lot of surgeons not taking trans people seriously. At the time, a lot of doctors making the criteria too strict. Well, in a lot of cases, it was inaccessible to a lot of people, and because of that, they did resort to this type of thing. And so that was a really systemic injustice, and John Brown is just a symptom of the larger problem, not the larger problem itself. So let's continue with all of that in mind. Although I will say I find it very strange that John Brown did all of this gender-affirming surgery when we're going to read what he wrote in this book, which is all about, you must maintain specific gender roles, here's how to be a proper woman. Why would someone who believes in Maureen's, your genitals define not just your gender, but your whole destiny and the way you must behave and dress and everything like that, why would someone who believes so strictly in gender roles be performing surgery on trans people? It doesn't really compute, but he's dead, so I can't ask him. Johns Hopkins, for example, only approved surgery for 24 out of the first 2,000 people who approached them with the request. Brown, by contrast, freely admitted that he was willing to operate on anyone who would pay him. At this time, many transgender women were grateful to him for providing reassignment surgery when they otherwise had no recourse. His lack of a formal surgical qualification made it necessary for him to carry out gender-affirming procedures in his office on an outpatient basis rather than in a fully equipped surgical theater. He also operated on patients in motel rooms and his own garage. In 1977, following the death of one patient and a lawsuit from another, Brown's medical license was revoked by the California Board of Medical Quality Assurance for gross negligence, incompetence, and practicing unprofessional medicine in a manner which involved moral turpitude. He was also charged with allowing patients to work as unqualified medical assistants, allegedly as a barter for their own subsequent surgery, failing to hospitalize a patient who developed a life-threatening infection, and making false claims on medical insurance forms. On May 9th, 1998, Brown performed a leg amputation on Philip Bondi, a 79-year-old retired satellite engineer from New York in Tijuana, Mexico. That city sounds familiar. Bondi was one of the rare individuals suffering from body integrity identity disorder, a desire to have a healthy limb amputated. Very few reputable surgeons are willing to treat this disorder by carrying out such an amputation due to its direct violation of the Hippocratic Oath. The morning after the surgery, Bondi was found dead in a National City, California hotel room by Greg M. Firth, a New York child psychologist and fellow BIID sufferer. Though they both wanted their legs amputated, Firth had backed out of having surgery with Brown at the last moment after seeing an assistant carrying a large knife. An autopsy showed Bondi had died of gas gangrene. A police search of Brown's home, a ground floor unit in San Ysidro, I'm not sure how to say that, revealed blood-soaked towels, sheets, and mattresses, as well as anesthetizing drugs, surgical instruments, and hundreds of tubes and superglue. Brown was prosecuted in California for second-degree murder, an unusually severe charge in medical cases. A surgeon who was witness to the prosecution testified that Brown had not left a large enough skin flap to properly cover the bone and stump. The flap was stretched too tightly to allow adequate blood flow, and the tissue in the flap died, allowing an infection and producing gangrene. To make the murder charges stick, the prosecution had to establish Brown had a history of incompetence and recklessness. A number of trans women gave testimonies of their experiences of Brown's treatment and subsequent medical history. However, he continued to have some supporters amongst former patients even after his arrest. So all of that is to say that that is the man who wrote this passage from his book, You Can Become Feminine and Beautiful, which, considering the fact that I believe at least one woman died under his care, potentially more. Not in the case that got him charged, that was from the man who got his leg amputated, but the fact that he was known for operating on trans people without a license. His book, You Can Become Feminine and Beautiful, that's just like sinister. Like, I don't know, that sounds sinister. I could be completely wrong. I could be just I very well could be just smashing two things together that aren't actually related, but it's like how is this not in a true crime documentary? Anyway, the way that he tells women to become feminine and beautiful is by, wait for it, manifesting it! Begin now. Tell your subconscious, I am a daintily feminine and beautiful person, and I want you, my computer. Computer here means brain. He's talking about Psycho-Cybernetics, the book by Maxwell Maltz. That's what he subscribes to here. I want you, my computer, to act as though I am that beautifully feminine person, and you must concentrate on making me even more tenderly beautiful. Don't garble it up by qualifications about a little bit beautiful with maybes, ifs, ands, or buts. Tell the computer firmly, clearly, and in the simplest language you possibly can, I am a beautiful woman, and I am going to be even more feminine and beautiful. On page 175, Maureen has the biggest checkmate atheist moment I've ever seen. Atheist viewers, you guys are going to be destroyed by this argument. Get ready. You're going to have to believe in God after this. Step 5, thy will be done. Most important of all, turn it over to the Lord. Say to him, if I am not right, show me how I am wrong and show me the way. Be willing to accept the answer no matter if it is be different than you thought. Live your life of virtue on a pedestal, always keeping your aims and ideals high. Then your Father in heaven will act on your behalf. Remember the story of Cinderella and the prince? She beckoned and the fairy godmother responded to her positive wish. God will make this happen for you, and my proof of God is that Cinderella had a fairy godmother. She says that. She says, remember the story of Cinderella? I acknowledge that it is fiction. However, the fact that she has a fairy godmother proves the existence of my God. That's what Maureen says. Checkmate, atheist. How could you possibly not believe in God when the fairy godmother was right there in a fictional story? Get ready for page 178. If you haven't vomited enough already today, get ready for more. On page 178, she's teaching women how to dress. Let's find out how I need to dress so that I can attract men and be properly feminine. What you want to select is clothing as much as possible unlike the clothing of men themselves. Men usually wear black, dark blue, gray, and brown. You want to avoid those colors. So like entire colors, like staple colors in many people's clothes, none of those colors. You can't wear any of them. You will look most girlish or womanly to men in pastel colors, and you will be most alluring. In fact, since the tenderness and childlikeness of women is so appealing to men, women will always seem most attractive and cuddlesome in those cuddlesome materials and colors which bring out this quality. The materials and colors that you yourself prefer to see on beautiful children. Mommy Maureen says, women should dress as much as possible like children because men find the childlikeness of women appealing. Okay, groomer? And in case you think that this is just some kind of like symbol or something, nope, she doubles down on this on page 182 where she says, first she talks about how men prefer long, flowing, clean hair. But if you want to have short hair can be effective in increasing your childlikeness and thus increasing your enticement. So you have to have long hair, and if you have short hair, it must be because it makes you look more like a child. With your manner and outward appearance contributing to your tender femininity, you must be careful that the whole effect is not spoiled by your voice. Usually a girl practicing the actions and manner outlined in the last chapter will instinctively modulate her voice softly to harmonize with her manner. Listen to your voice for a few days. Use a tape recorder during a long conversation with a friend. If you discover that your voice is spoiling the impression you are endeavoring to create, then you will have to take time and effort to change. Your voice should help bring out the contrast between you and men too. It should emphasize your tenderness and your childlikeness. If I had this in a physical book, I'd be setting it on fire right now. But would I? Because there's only like 4 copies of it in existence. Would I set such a rare book on fire? Or would I I don't know, I want to set it on fire. It says, women, make sure you dress like a child, style your hair like a child, and if your voice sounds too much like an adult, pitch it higher, because men don't want adults, they want children. Ew! Oh my god, I want to set everything on fire right now, but what can you guys know? My soul is leaving my body. Guys, I can't take it anymore, I'm sorry. Guys, I'm sorry, I cannot take any more of this book right now. There will be a part 2 to this video because there's still notes to go through where Maureen teaches us about how to prepare for a wedding. We have so much to unpack in the wedding section, but I cannot handle this any longer. I cannot say okay groomer one more time without literally exploding. So, this was my review of The Secret Power of Femininity. How many stars do I give it? Negative 69 stars. Negative 69 stars to this book. It is the worst book to ever exist. If anyone can help me find the book by Dr. John Brown, please let me know because I need to read it, but I can't find evidence of it anywhere. So stay tuned because either next week or the week after, I will be doing a second video about how Mommy Maureen teaches us how to prepare for a wedding because there's just still like so much more left to this book and this video's already gonna be like 2 hours long. Oh my god. So stick around because there will be more of that. But this was The Secret Power of Femininity by Maureen Startup, mother of Deanne Stidham, the founder of LuLaRoe. Having too many crazy woman emotions right now. I will see you guys again on Monday on Your Morning Guru and on Friday on this channel for another video. In the meantime, please keep on supporting small businesses. Once again, thank you to Magic Spoon for sponsoring this video. Thank you to my Patreon supporters for supporting this video. I love you guys. You're the best. I'll see you next week. I need to set myself on fire and then take a bath. Bye!
Hit you some nuts.
There was lots of memes.
Makes me wonder if I should take up lesbianism.
Chicago. You guys asked for it.